Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a backup camera in this 2008 Subaru Impreza WRX. In this install, we're going to show you how to install a license plate mountable camera to an existing aftermarket radio. Now in this install, we're actually not going to show you how we installed this radio or pull out the radio, because we've already covered that in full detail in our other video. Check that on out. We'll have a card up above as well as a link in the description, and that will take you directly to that video. So what we're going to do from this point on is we are going to jump to the bench and show you what parts that we're going to use for this backup camera. Let's go ahead and get started. Now the radio that we're going to use for our WRX is this Echo Master backup camera. This is a nice quality camera, but this is a universal kit that adapts to an aftermarket radio or aftermarket screen. In this kit, it comes with your RCA video cable. Now this cable specifically carries the video signal from the camera all the way up to the radio. It's a hardwired connection. In addition, it has these little red leads that hang off. It just runs in parallel with the video wire, but essentially here one end goes to the trigger wire on the back of the radio. The other end will go to the positive wire on your reverse light. So we'll show you what that looks like here. Also with this kit comes with a power harness for the camera. Comes with some mounting brackets in case rather than using the license plate option, you do more of your own custom bracket or mount. And then finally it comes with the camera itself. Now the camera itself is actually kind of unique because it mounts behind the license plate. It'll plug into the power harness, which is here, which requires power and ground to power the camera, and your video output, which runs through this cable all the way up to back behind the radio. So let's go ahead and get this thing installed. Okay, so with the radio out, we're ready to start running our cables for the backup camera. Now our camera requires, as we showed you here on the bench, a video cable, which basically provides that signal from the camera, brings it all the way up to here in the dash. So this plugs into the camera input on the back of the radio, and a trigger wire. So this little red wire needs to go to your radio's trigger wire, and on our Pioneer it happens to be purple white, and we've left it out so it's easily accessible. We're going to connect this trigger wire into our purple and white wire, because the other end of this will go to the positive wire on a reverse light, and that will provide the trigger that the radio needs. When the car is in reverse, that light turns on, it puts power to this wire, which automatically cycles the Pioneer over to the reverse camera mode without having to need to do anything else. Once that light turns off and you're going forward, it no longer puts power to this wire, and the radio goes back to whatever source it was previously. So that's why that's super important to hook up. So we're going to get that connected in that wire. We're going to connect this into the camera input on the back of the radio. Now in parallel, you can see all our wire here. We ran an extra 18 gauge wire, and the reasoning is our Pioneer also has a feature that you can also use the camera while not in reverse, but you can just click on camera and see what's behind you. Let's say if you're going down the highway, you want to see the car behind you. Well, that requires the camera to have accessory. It needs power more than just when in reverse. So we're going to run a power wire for the camera in parallel with our video cable, and we tapped into the accessory, the red wire, on our harness. You can also do this in the fuse box here up underneath the dash. So what we're going to do is we ran that down, just fished it out the bottom of the dash. We're going to go across along the kick panels and work our way to the trunk area. Okay, so you saw us get the wire down to this point. It's obviously connected into the radio. So now I need to run this all the way to the back. Now what we're gonna do is just pull this on back. You can actually grab the carpet and loosen it up a little bit but we're going to tuck it back up underneath the carpet here. Now, along these kick panels, if you get your fingers up underneath, just like so. Just popping these out here. So what's that's going to do is allow us to get in to this channel here so we can run these cables along the kick panel here. Now there is actually just a little bit of space in here already, so if you want to run that cable down there, we're working our way to the back, you're welcome to do so. There's our little side panel that just pops off with these two clips. Sometimes we'll have a locking nut on that side. So same thing here, pop this up so we can run our cable, continue along. We're going to just go ahead and tuck it. So we've run our video cable and power wire for our camera all the way to this point. We need to pop this interior trim piece out so we can get access to pop out our reverse light. So these clips basically, they're flat like this. You get a flat head up underneath and you can pop these out. And it pops on out, so it allows you to pull the clip out. This panel removed, it gave us access to remove two 8mm bolts on both sides. And then the rest is popped off with clips, so this piece can come off. And again, two 8mm right in the middle. There's nuts on the other side. And then these ends here are just held on with clips. And this comes on out. And then give us the access to mount our camera once we put our plate back on. And then there's a factory grommet here. We cut into the grommet so we can snake that wire through. And we'll wrap it around so it doesn't pinch. But that allows us to run our power and video connections into the inside of the trunk. And this has enough cable here that we can reassemble this. Nothing gets pinched and it seals up and around the wire. Okay, so we've got our camera mounted. I actually just filed a little notch in that so the cord doesn't get pinched, but you saw us go through that grommet. Everything comes out here. Here's our connections. So we hooked up our power cable for our camera. And remember the video cable that came all the way up front. We still need to run it. But basically here, we have that all coming down. Now, remember that little red wire that was hanging off the video wire? Well, that needs to go to the reverse light, but the reverse light is way down here. So we need to extend that. Way too short, obviously. So I have some 18 gauge red wire that I just connected into it, extended that. So we have our video wire, the yellow RCA. We have our power and ground for our camera. And we have that red trigger wire because obviously too short there, and we're going to run that down the factory loom here, and we're going to tape it just like the factory loom. And now we have our panel all pulled apart, and this is our reverse light. So this is where we're going to grab ground for the camera and power for the trigger wire and get those connected. Taped all the way down just to protect that wire, and that actually looks factory. It doesn't look bad at all. Got everything connected, good to go. Everything's zip tied so we can put this cover back on. And we got to put our license plate back on. We ran the wires down. Now obviously they came down here. Remember that black one and the yellow one go all the way up front and connect back behind the radio. But the power wire, red and black wire, and remember we extended our trigger wire, those two guys, we'll head this way and we make our connections. So connection number one is of the red and the black wire of this guy here. The red is the power wire to the camera, and that connects into this yellow wire. Remember, this yellow wire goes all the way to the front to switch power, so that's going to be on when the key is on. So we twisted those together and put a crimp cap on. And then, since we have our reverse light popped out, the ground of the camera goes to the solid black of this reverse light from this socket. And then the trigger wire, that red wire that goes all the way up to front, then connects into the radio's trigger wire, which is purple white, and that goes into the positive side of the reverse light. So what we did here is we just stripped the shielding back just a little bit, and we're going to solder onto that, tape up our connections, and put the bulb back in. So what that's going to do, this wire is going to trigger the radio. This is the ground of the camera, and then this is the power to the camera that's on switch power behind the radio. That's it, and then we'll zip tie this along that existing loom so it's nice and factory. Okay, got everything zip tied and taped up, light all reinstalled, everything's soldered and covered up. Let's go ahead and reassemble the trunk, putting all our pieces back together, and head up to the front and do a final test. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a final test since the trunk's all back together. Go ahead and put it in reverse. There we are. Perfect. We need to do a little bit of adjustment to the camera so it's pointing a little bit further down. But other than that, it's looking awesome. Go back out of reverse. Now, since we ran an accessory wire from the back of the radio to power the camera versus just relying on the backup light to power the camera, we can go to our home screen, go to our AV, and go to camera view, and still see what's behind us when not in reverse, which is awesome, which is what we wanted. Now, if your camera's not working right away, you can always go to your settings and make sure you go to your camera settings and it's set to on and the battery. If it's not, then you're going to have some issue. That's about it for this install. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. Just remember, if you want to see this radio installed, we'll have a link in the description as a step-by-step tutorial on how we pulled out the radio and got that all wired up as well. We also happen to do a sub and amp install on this too. Any other questions, be sure to post a comment below, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.